John Singer Sargent once said, "A portrait is a painting in which something is wrong with the mouth." Because when it comes to drawing accuracy, I'm not sure there's anything more demanding than achieving a likeness in a portrait. Achieving a likeness means that your drawing of a person is recognizable as that person. But when you're drawing a face, you don't always have to achieve a likeness. It really depends on what your goal is for the drawing. It may be that you just want a beautiful drawing that reflects your creative vision. So moving things around just so that the features are in just the right place for a likeness might ruin your real aim. You may though want to capture this person specifically for your drawing, or you may like to see that you have enough skill to not only draw a face that looks natural and lifelike, but also to go further and match the features and the relationships between them. So if a likeness is our aim, how can you do it? We often want to go straight into drawing each feature just as we see them, but the portrait could be made or broken much before that happens when we're laying the foundations. The first layers of the drawing should start to map out where things are going to go. This positioning is essential to achieve a likeness. Look at what happens to Dwayne Johnson's face if I just start moving things around a tiny bit. You could be camera perfect for your drawing of each feature and make them the exact right size, but your drawing will look very weird if you don't have them in the right place. The other thing to take care of at the same time as the positioning is the sizes of each feature. This relates closely to the positioning because it's hard to get positioning right if the sizes are wrong. Look at what happens to Dwayne Johnson's face when we change the relative size of some of his features. So we could draw them exactly as they are and in the right place. But if they're a little bit too big or too small, the face becomes completely different. So how are we going to get both positioning and sizing right? If we consider the face to be the area from the chin to the hairline, then we can divide that area into equal thirds. From the hairline to the eyebrows, from the eyebrows to the bottom of the nose, and from the bottom of the nose to the chin. And that lower third can be split in two to give you the point where the bottom of the mouth is. Now there are more rules like that we can mention here, but for now this really is enough to get started, especially considering that every face is different. So every face is going to be different and many of them won't conform to rules like the equal thirds rule. Or it may be that the relative distances are different because of the angle we're viewing the face from. Here we're looking at the face from below and that's changing the relative distances. So let's measure. We can start with the distance from the bottom of the chin to the bottom of the nose. And now let's look at how this compares to the distance from the bottom of the nose to the eyebrows. If it was standard, it would be that these distances are about the same. So how about this face from this angle? Do the same again with the line from the eyebrows to the hairline. Getting these three relative distances about right is going to go a long way to getting things in the right place. Measure the distances and angles between different points in the face. Here's a few to keep an eye on. You don't need to stress about these. Your eye is going to take care of many of these measurements automatically. But when you're struggling or unsure about where something goes, when your eye is telling you something's a bit off, we can use these angles and distances to help fix things. The angles that create the curvature of the center line of the face. It's especially useful when you're drawing a face in profile. The distance from the corner of each eye to the bridge of the nose. The gap between the eye and the eyebrows, because we often want to leave a bigger gap than there really is. The angle between the inner corners of the two eyes, if you can see them both. The angle between the inner corner of the eye to the outer edge of the nostril. the angle between the outer edge of the eye and the outer edge of the mouth. We want to build up the landscape around the features as we place them, the features being things like the mouth, the nose, and the eyes. The shapes of the shade help us understand that landscape. So for example, rather than just drawing the eye, we want to look at the eye socket and the shade that it creates. Rather than just drawing the mouth, we want to look at the shade under the lower lip and so on. So these are the tonal shapes that we're interested in starting to build up at the same time as placing features like the eyes, nose, and mouth, and they're also going to help us to get things in the right place and at the right size. So we talked a bit about seeing the tonal shapes in the face, and often when people are drawing, especially from a photograph, they'll go very deep into trying to exactly match the tones. Like if we were to print this photo, the printer would do a really good job of matching the exact tones in this photo. But we want to draw the person rather than copying and replicating the photo. So it's good to think about the shapes of their face. Those are the shapes that create the tones. And those are really what we want to draw. So it's a little bit of a shift in mindset. That's why it's a good idea before starting to draw a person, if you're drawing them from a photo, to look at other pictures or videos of the person to get a feel for their face from different angles. And if you're drawing them live, to look at their face from a few different angles to really get to know it in a three-dimensional way. It's also useful to think a little bit about the shapes under the surface sometimes. The eyeball rather than just the part of the eye we can see, or the socket that it's sitting in. The different sections of the nose, we talked before about the bony part and the nostril area and all of that. The curving skull, the jaw and the teeth around the mouth. You don't need to necessarily draw these shapes, but even just imagining them and seeing them in your mind's eye will help you to draw the things that you can see better. Continue to build up the features and tonal areas lightly and simply so that they can still be moved and changed. This also means that when you do see something's a bit off, you should be unafraid to move it. Sometimes you need to move things quite dramatically when you see that they're in the wrong place. Even if you like how that feature's looking, remember you've drawn that once, so you'll be able to draw it again. Don't be scared to move it, shift the eyes down, or whatever it is that you need to do. There isn't really a technique or an analysis or some super secret method that's going to replace the skill that you develop in your eye with lots of practice. So the most essential ingredient to being able to achieve a likeness, and there's no real way around this, is consistently practicing drawing different people. Now in the next video, we'll be drawing a face you're more familiar with, an actor from the new Star Wars series, and we'll use these simple techniques and processes, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button because we've got lots more great stuff coming out in the next few months. And we also have a really useful newsletter at lovelifedrawing.com and the podcast. So check those out at lovelifedrawing.com. Thank you so much for listening.